This episode, we take a look at turning a shed into a proper workshop where you can work on motor vehicles. So this is STS Garage V2. I'm stoked with how it turned out. Now let's have a look at what goes into it. Well, this is what we had to work with. So take a minute to have a look at what 17 years of accumulation looks like. You don't realize how much stuff you have until you start doing a clean out like this. All the racking needed to be removed as I needed this space to be able to put a car hard against the wall. I went about adding some more overhead shelving and trying to keep as much off the benches and off the floor. This is where things really started to heat up for the renovation, and we decided to paint most of the walls in a colour-bond colour called Monument. We added some doors underneath part of the bench to create a space that could really just store odds and ends that I don't use too often. Be aware, if you're going to do a project like this yourselves and paint brick walls, you use heaps of paint. I think all up we used about $600 worth, as the brickwork really does suck it in. If I had my time over, we would have definitely used a cheaper undercoat. We just sort of didn't know how much we were going to do when we started, and the project kept growing as we went along.
So we've done the grey wall at the back, we're bringing it down the side now, but I didn't want to do the whole wall grey. So we've got a bit of an idea of doing a bit of a tyre tread pattern that blends the dark grey to the blonde brick. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to project it onto the wall and then paint around it. So I don't know if this will work, but measure once, cut twice. We'll end up painting the whole bloody wall grey if we have to, but hopefully it turns out pretty cool.
It was time to start thinking about where the hoist was going to go and how it was going to be fixed down. Now, the concrete for the hoist needed to be a minimum of 125mm thick and into 32 MPa concrete. I could not guarantee either of those things, so I set about cutting 2 big holes in the slab so I could be sure that once the hoist was bolted down, it was going to stay there. Our footing ended up roughly 800 by 800 and approximately 550 millimeters deep, which was back down to natural ground level. I put 12 16mm dowel bars in each hole, then a bit of 82 mesh over the top, ready to fill it back in with 32 MPa concrete. It was safe to say me and Jamesy definitely earned our beer that afternoon. As I was saying earlier, the paint bug bit hard and Megs couldn't help herself to do a matching wall complete with the tyre tread collage. Well, if you hadn't guessed already, the roof trusses are way too low in here for a hoist. So it's time to get the electrician in, disconnect everything, go about getting some scaffold set up and start modifying the bottom chords of these trusses to allow room for the clear floor hoist. I did this by removing the bottom chord and the webs and replacing that strength with a piece of 190/45 as basically a rafter and becomes a pitch roof. We did put a collar tie back in just above where the hoist was going to stand. And the results really were quite good. It was quite easy to do and quite cost effective, with all the timber costing about $1,000. Clad the back gable in fibro and I actually used a bit of old paint as a bit of a primer this time. Got sick of using so much expensive paint. Then we had to go up painting the STS Garage logo with a paintbrush using the projector method that we had used before. It looked really good in photos and videos, but actually being in the shed and standing there looking at it, it looked like a 3-year-old had done it. That was a massive fail. Looks amazing in pictures and in the video, but in real life it looks like a 4-year-old's done it. So it's gone. Measure once, cut twice. See? So me and Jamesy went about sealing the floor. Now we used Rust-Oleum concrete and garage floor paint and primer for this. And my understanding is this is better than paint, but it is not a full 2-part epoxy. I didn't want the stuff coming off in sheets as the concrete underneath is that stained, that damaged from years and years of abuse. And look, to be honest, we hardly prepped the floor. I made sure it was super dry and super clean. I didn't, however, degrease it, and the paint seems to have stuck quite well. So maybe next year we'll go to a full epoxy, but for now this will keep the dust down. So we brought the professionals in and now we're going to get it sign written properly on some alu panel board, and this is going to look really nice. So we'll let Anthony do his work here and see how it comes out. It was interesting to see how easily he made this, being that these were all laser cut single letters that he was going to stick to that gable. He printed out a template first, cut little corners out of it, marked where each letter needed to be, and it made it really quite simple to stick the letters exactly in the right spot. Right, a massive piece of the puzzle for STS Garage version 2 is the hoist. Thanks for G-Works for loaning me your truck, really helps me out. Now I can't get a machine in the shed as I don't have the door height. There's no real easy way of lifting this thing up, but I have learned a trick over the years that makes this possible. Go and buy yourself plenty of beer, invite all your mates around, promise of beer, and put them to work when they get here.
Set, go! There we go. There, stop in. Put it down. Don't hit the roof.
Righto, so we've got the hoist sat in position. As you can see yesterday, a few beers works wonders. If you've got a few mates around, it was probably easier than using a machine to lift those up and safer. Didn't mark the floor, and I really didn't have the height to get a machine in here. So can be done. I think each column is about 350 kilos. It really was quite an easy thing to do. So we've got everything laid out on the bench that we need to put the hoist up. I'm expecting this to take about 4 hours. I have helped do one before, and I have sort of done one of these on my own with some help. So being that this is the third hoist, we will probably have to read the instructions again just to make sure it's right. Now, installing one of these, you do need to be aware of a few things. You need to make sure that your substrate or your floor is going to be able to accept this hoist. You need a minimum of 125 mil of concrete as per STS Garage instructions. That's why we dug footings and beefed those right up. I really couldn't be sure what this was. The concrete also needs to be 32 MPa. So look, it's a little bit extra work to make sure that you meet those regulations, especially if you have to dig holes like I did. But you know, there is going to be potentially 4.5 tonne above your head, and once it's up, it's very hard to go back and change that later. You obviously need to make sure that your shed is high enough. As you saw, mine wasn't, so it's another real pain in the ass. If you've got a shed like mine, you got to go and modify all the trusses. So there's a few things to get ready before you get to this point. Now it's time to install. So we'll run through exactly how a hoist goes together in a DIY sort of sense, and it is really a job that most people will be able to achieve. So we've got a new James today. Thanks, Benny.
No worries.
Legend. He works just for a shirt. Look at that. Not a bad deal. Go to smartsteeringsystems.com.au. Shameless plug. Okay, so you got to get a centre line in your shed where you want the centre of the hoist, and then they give you a measurement to the outside edges of the base plates that bolt down. Okay, so at this point we're going to put a dynabolt in the first column. We have checked to make sure the other column is going to be centre of the shed. Double check everything, because once you drill these holes, that's it. It's a 20mm masonry bit, and make sure it's a good quality 20mm masonry bit. It has to be exactly that hole to make your anchors work properly, because that is the only thing stopping this thing from falling over when there's a car above your head. Okay, so we've got a few dynabolts in now. At this point, we need to go through and you use these shims, so they slip in around the dynabolt, so you get a chance to sort of adjust it as you put the bolts in. It's a little bit of mucking around, but it's pretty straightforward. Just keep persisting. Once you get it nice, keep tightening your bolts up as you go around the post, and then fully nip them up, knowing that the post is plumb. Okay, so it's proven to be pretty easy to plumb up. So we're going to go through and drill the last 2 holes. Now in the instructions, it does say to put only 1 dynabolt in each leg and get the top post in. Our alignment is, or would be, within 5 or 10 mil. It's yeah, it's, I know what I'm saying. It's harder when there's James 2 here, because I'm used to James 1, so it makes a difference. Anyway, I'm going to finish dynabolting this post down and then do the other side. James 2 here, or Ben I should say, made a very good point. So in the instructions it says it is critically important to only put 1 bolt in each post at this stage. That's why you got to be careful with YouTube channels. Do your research, read the instructions. This is how we're going to do it, and I think it will work. But the instructions do say to put 1 in each side at this point. STS Garage does some things differently, and we'll carry on. 34.59, that's it. Righto. Beautiful. We're 35.50 to the outside edges of the base plate. We're the same distance off the back wall, and we're square off the back wall within a mil or 2. So we're going to go ahead now and put this top beam up. Okay, so this is the cross beam we have to put up. First, we've got these brackets to go on top of the columns. Now, if you were doing this in a less rushed manner, you would put those brackets on those columns before you lift them, or I would. That personally would be heaps easier. So put these on first, then it allows us to lift this crossbeam up on top and it can sit there while we bolt it off. Now there is full instructions of which bolts go where. They're all labelled and packaged out. So, you know, set your bolts out, find out which bolts you need for those brackets to go on the columns. We'll get up the ladder there and put them on, and then we'll lift this crossbeam up. Yeah. We go ahead, dyno bolt that other post down and plumb it up, and then we'll go ahead and start putting all the cables and hydraulic lines in.
Went past.
Righto, so we're on the safety lock. Now we can run the cables down around the pulley back up to the top of the arm. Nice. Now we go up over the beam, back down and lock into the top of that column. Then we do the reverse on the other side, go down around the pulley, back up and into the top of this column. Yep, she's in. Awesome. So sometimes these do just slip over the wheel. They're quite snug in there. Other times you do have to take that pin out and get that pulley loose to get the cable through. I'm going to pull the pin out of these pulleys to get this cable through. So while I'm up here, Ben's going to shoot me the other one and we'll pull it apart once. That'll do, donkey. That'll do. So we've got both arms up at the same height. So at this point, you can pretty well put a bit of tension on that cable or both those cables, and they should be pretty damn close because the arms are sitting at the right height, or an equal height that is. Doesn't matter whether they're on the ground or right up, as long as they're at the same height. So we're going to do the safety cable now. We've got the equalising cables in, so they keep your rams at the same height as they go up and down. The safety cable is actually what releases the safety latch on the opposite side of the lever. So when you pull the lever on one side, it releases your wedge and allows your arms to release and go down. So we're going to get that up in there now, and then we'll be on to the hydraulics. Run the hydraulic lines now, fill it with oil, and then we'll call the sparky in, run some power down, and we'll get it going up and down. Before we hit the power button, we better put some oil in it. Now, the instructions do state a specific grade of oil to put in this. Follow the instructions. I'm not going to tell you what that is because I have no idea, but Ben's kindly brought the rest of his around. We've fitted one in his shed before. Okay, so we just about got the safety done. The limiting switch is ready to go on and it's pretty well ready for some power. So just in perfect time, the electrician's turned up. How you going, bud?
Not bad, how you doing?
Adam.
Ben, nice to meet you.
Fuck, you look like that other guy.
No, not at all.
Same name as well.
Shall work.
Hits the bar, triggers the switch, sends a signal down via this cable to stop the pump.
Not that you need to do it anymore.
Make sure you clean that shit up after you finish.
Charge more for that.
Yeah.
You get that other bloke back and then you clean up.
Yeah. It's an uncanny resemblance.
Yeah.
Bit of a wanker though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
You met him before.
No, I've just heard of him.
Okay. Alright, put that in there, haven't you? Isn't that what he's do? You fill all the boxes with hundreds?
No, take him out of there.
Last step for the Sparky is to bring the cable from the limiting switch up the top down into the control box to cut the pump when the bar is hit. So we've run the arms up and it's now time to bleed all the air out of the hydraulic system by cracking the nut on the top of the hydraulic ram. That'll push the air out, and as it settles down, oil will start to come out. Probably do that 2 or 3 times. Sweet. Everything seems to work. First go, which is unusual for STS Garage. Maybe I could tell James it's his fault. James won, that is. So anyway, that was pretty easy. The old Hoist is a winner for sure. Better get this electrician out of here before the clock runs any longer. Thanks for your help, bud.
No worries, mate. Fresh
Back, Benny.
back.
You did? Yeah. Electrician was pretty good.
Yeah,
Did a nice job. Dreading the bill though.
Yeah, not cheap.
Not cheap.
Especially that and working shit.
Yeah. They seem to know you pretty well.
Never met him before.
Said you were a bit of a wanker actually.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Oh,
Yeah, cheers for your help.
no worries. Thank you.
Now to add those finishing touches, I went and got some 1.5mm gauge sheet bent up to create a really clean, usable surface on all the workbenches surrounding the edges of the shed. The last little finishing touch was to hang all our major sponsors on the back wall, all 4x4 spares, Conqueror and G-Works. And you may be asking, what has Conqueror Campers got to do with STS Garage? Well, STS Garage is not only a YouTube channel for building things, it's actually a home base for Smart Touring Systems YouTube channel, which is a travel channel, and that's where the Conqueror Camper and G-Works brands come in. We also want to thank Bisley and the Wheel Deal, our minor sponsors, for helping out with some wheels and tyres and some quality Bisley gear. Now that is job done, let's wrap it up. Well, that's what went into STS Garage version 2. That's really what it takes to turn a shed or a garage into a proper workshop to work on motor vehicles. One thing we're still probably missing is a really good set or a chest of tools. We still do things with quite basic equipment, which probably keeps us relevant to everyone at home. As things progress, I think it's one thing I will invest in. It's just a natural progression as you take on more complicated tasks. I'll probably buy the tools that go with it. But for now, we'll make do with what we've got. It's been successful so far. The Hoist, however, is going to change our lives with how we do things. Do things probably a lot safer, a lot easier, and not laying on your back, getting covered in, welding splatter and things like that. So that's going to be a life changer, that Hoist. So guys, at this point, I'm really going to ask, just hit that like and subscribe button. Really does help us out. Doesn't cost anything. And as always, don't forget, you do only live once. So get out in the shed and get into that project. See you next time.